Hiya, it's Amanda here from Lolli Lulu Crafts, and today is the last video of the year and the last video before my little annual break. So I will be back on the 3rd of February, which sounds a long time, but it's actually just the normal couple of weeks that I have, which gives me an opportunity to do some maintenance on the website and just have a little break from making videos. So today's video is a birthday card. So this one is for my mum. So if you're watching, Mum, switch off now. I don't want you to see what it is. Okay, now she's gone. Let's get crafting. So we're starting out with this gorgeous stamp, which is just a really fun image, which I really like these different images that you can get from art impressions, and I'm just stamping it using my stamp platform, and I'm putting what I'm using on the screen because some of these are things that are in my stash and I'm not sure that they're all available items now, but you can get some of them you can't, so I thought it's easier to do it there. So there will be the normal links list on the blog post, but just in case anything isn't available, at least you know what it is I've used and you may have it already in your stash as well. So all I did here was I took a piece of white card and I stamped the image, and then I stamped the sentiment that went along with it, and I just positioned it in a place that I thought was going to work for what I had in mind. Now luckily the plan I had wasn't entirely set in stone, but what I did want was a background using the glimmer plate of these gorgeous candles. So I've put my glimmer platform on, so the red light was on, then you wait for the green light to go solid, and then you put your plate onto the platform. Now in this instance I had a piece of card, and the plan was to position the candles onto the left hand side of the card. See if you can spot what went wrong with that on this particular way I was doing it, because of course it's going to be mirrored, because it's going to be upside down. The piece of card is going to be facing downwards. So what I accidentally did, once you put the plate on, by the way, you need to press the button and you wait for the second green light to come on, then you put your foil on, and then you put your card. But what you'll see is obviously you put the coloured side down because the piece of card is going to be on top, and it's going to be the underside of your card that's going to get the foiling on it. So you obviously want the coloured side facing downwards so that that's what shows. However, if you'll realise is that I put my plate on the left hand side thinking, oh, I want the candles on the left hand side, but of course when I turn it over it's going to be mirrored, so it ended up that it was on the right hand side. Now in the end this turned out to be a happy accident, and you will see why, but at the time I was like but then I began thinking about it, and I was thinking, well, really I didn't want just a plain white with the candles on the left. I just thought that might look a bit boring, so I was thinking, but where can I put sort of some pattern paper if I've got the candles like that? So I had been sort of thinking about it. So having then done that wrong, I was able to make some adjustments and rejig what I had been thinking, and sort of almost sort of make it up as I was going along to a certain extent, because I had a couple of choices. Obviously I could have just redone the foiling. However, it came out really well, and you just know that every other time it's going to come out perfect, but if I redid it, it would be a mess, because that's what always happens. Those things are always the same, isn't it? It's just that law that it would go that way. The other thought I had was to do a second set on the other side to make it like a full background, but again I was still thinking it's just not really, even that isn't quite what I wanted, so I just was not sure. Now what I did is you saw here I didn't remove the foiling straight away because I wanted to get the glimmer plate to come back up to temperature, because I also have a sentiment that I want to put on. So that one, it's not such a big deal where it is, so I just sort of popped it in the middle. You press it once it's at temperature, then put it on, press the little button, it flashes at you. Once it goes solid, put your foiling on. A little tip, make sure the foiling is pretty narrow and tight to the size of your actual plate, because then you won't get any spare bits where you don't want them. Sometimes the foil will foil on little bits that you don't want it to foil on. I will put a link at the end of this video for you to the videos that I did about this foiling machine. So if you've not used it before, or if you've forgotten because you haven't used it for a while, then I will put that video up, and it shows you step by step exactly how to use the foiling machine if what you're seeing here isn't quite enough. But as you can see, that came out really gorgeous as well. So I was really pleased with how the foiling was coming out. Just a little tip as well, if you do have a small amount of foil in the wrong place, a regular eraser generally, if you're careful, will get rid of it enough that it doesn't show. Now this particular set of sentiments comes with each sentiment having a die to cut it out, so I thought that would be really good, so I did that. That's why I wasn't so worried about the position of the little plate when I put it on the glimmer platform, because I knew I was going to be cutting it out. So I did my stamping. I've let that go off and let the ink completely dry because I'm going to be colouring that in, and then I've done all my foiling. And this is where I had obviously realised that this just wasn't going to work. So this is now, I'm putting on the screen for you as well the dimensions, because there was lots of different bits that I'm going to be cutting up, so I'll put the dimensions on the screen for you so you can see. But this is where I started cutting things down, and started realizing, right, this is what I'm going to do here, this is what I'm going to do there. At this point I hadn't really found the pattern paper I wanted, but I knew that I wanted pattern paper and I knew where I wanted it to go. So at this point I'm just cutting things down because I know exactly what sizes I need them to be, because I've kind of positioned things and I've kind of worked it out. These are some mats as well to go under. I've wanted a mat of gold to go under my pattern paper, I wanted a mat to go under my stamped piece, and I want a mat also to go under the foiling. You will also see later that I do some mats in other colours and the pattern paper, but I will show you that later on. I have now chosen the pattern paper. Normally I'm really bad at this and I don't choose the pattern paper before I do the colouring, but I realised in this instance I had to do it because I really wanted some pattern paper that had something that was like the gold foiling in it, because I felt that that would really bring it all together. So I needed to find my pattern paper in order to make sure that the image that I'm colouring now would complement that pattern paper colour wise. So I got that out, I tested my markers and made sure that the colours of the dress etc went with that pattern paper really well. So all I'm doing now at the moment is I'm using my Copic markers. I will put on my blog post a photograph of all the colours that I've used so you can see precisely which colours they are. Again, I haven't gone into detail here labelling them for you. I thought it was easier just to show you a photo of them on there so you can see it from there. But all I'm doing here is I'm just doing a couple of different colours to add dimension to the skin, and it looks often quite horrific at this stage because it looks really strong, because at this point the alcohol is still wet, so it does need you need to give it a second. Obviously you need to do some blending, but you do also then give it a second before you carry on. If you do your next layer and you've gone through the colours up to the darkest and then blended it all in, give that a second, let it sort of dry off, then go back to it and reassess whether it needs a little bit more. Now I've got my sort of colours in my head, I'm going straight in with the dark, especially on these smaller areas, and then going from dark straight down to light. I have, as you saw at the beginning, I always do just one layer of the very lightest colour. I just find that helps to blend things through just a little bit. But just literally taking quite a dark marker and using that for the shadows, but then just going down, and you'll see I've using quite a few different colours. I think there's about 4 different colours to do the skin. Now you do not have to do that if that's not what you want to do, but here I've obviously got the lightest colour already laid down, then I've got that very dark pinky red, pinky brown, then a darker skin tone, then a mid skin tone, and then obviously the palest skin tone. So you've got quite a lot of different colours in the skin, but I find it does add a really nice dimension to it. But again, you don't have to do as much as that. Now for the hair, I just used these sort of warm greys, and I just dotted it because it was like she's got, you know, like little curly hair, old lady curly hair. And I started very dark at the bottom and then going to lighter, because obviously near her head would be the darkest area. And then at the last bit here, I'm using my just pure alcohol marker, the blender pen, because that just then creates like little blank dots, which just again just adds a little bit of dimension to that. And you can see there I went outside the line and I just used the blender pen to get rid of that. And I'm using the same colors on this little extinguisher label thing as I did on the hair, just to create that sort of label part there. And I think that it works quite well. And here on her socks, I'm using a warm grey and sorry, a cool grey, I beg your pardon. And I just use quite a dark. It's surprising because even though it's white, it's surprising you will have shadows, and therefore grey is quite a good tone. Now again, it needs to dry. At the moment they look like a really dirty pair of socks, but once it dries they start to look much whiter. I think you can just about see it at the bottom now and again when I move. And again, I'm just using that other warm grey for the pipe here and that other section of the fire extinguisher, and then a little bit on the shoes as well. Again, just really at this point I was slightly making up the colours where this part I wanted to go. I wasn't entirely sure. I knew what I wanted the dress to be. I had worked out most of the stuff, but a few odds and ends I was just sort of playing it by ear and saw what looked right. Here I thought it would be really nice. I found this sort of gold pen. It's a Prismacolor, no, Pro Marker, brain fade. It was a Pro Marker gold, actual gold metallic pen, and I thought that would work really nicely for that fire extinguisher nozzle, and also for the hooped earrings. And I will also do it on her glasses frames, which was not fun because the thin end was just not had any ink for some reason, so I was having to use this really fat end, and luckily it had quite a pointy part to it, so I was able to just be really light with it, but it was not easy. But I just felt like it would just give it just a little bit of shimmer and add it. Again, it's just all about dimension. It's very subtle dimension, but it does add that. And you'll see I added a little bit to the fire extinguisher at the end as well, where it sort of would be normally sitting, because I thought that would, normally that would probably be silver metal, but you know, we're giving a little bit of a sort of artistic license. And again, here for her glasses, I was just adding a little bit of grey in there just to give like an illusion of something behind them. You don't necessarily see through them. And later on, what I will do, and here, sorry, this is just the blender pen, just making it a little bit less sort of dark, but later on when I finish the colouring, I actually do put some stickles on that, some crystal stickles. You could also just use like some glossy accents as well if you wanted to. So here again, I'm using a Pro Marker, and then I use this other colour, the Copic colour. When I tested it, the two colours worked really well together. They looked quite different. When I put it down here, I was like, they're not quite what I thought. They're really quite similar. I like the sort of warmer brown colour, but it just didn't really, it wasn't enough. So I went back with a different colour to add in the shading, so it sort of kept that warmer colour. And again, I still didn't feel it was quite there, so I went in then with a paler colour that took out some of the colour. You can see there it's a really light colour, and what that does is it moves some of that other colour away. And what I quite liked was it almost made it look a bit patchy, a bit kind of like an old tatty cardigan, and I really quite liked the effect that gave. It wasn't deliberate, but I actually really quite liked it. I thought it ended up making it looked like a sort of a tatty old cardigan, so I did quite like that in the end, so I was quite pleased with that. And then just again for the collar, and this was this colour because it goes, you'll see later, it goes with my pattern paper. And then I just added the warm tones to the shoe as well. I was using the grey, the warm and the grey. It's kind of a weird combination, sort of a cool grey and then adding a warmer goldy tone over the top of that. But it just sort of sludged it a bit and made it a bit sort of dirty, sort of a dirty goldy colour, which is what I wanted for the shoe. Now obviously normally your fire extinguishers would be red, but when you see my paper, I clearly could not use red. So I went for something that was kind of along those lines, and it was a pinky, reddy burgundy colour. I thought it was close enough, again, a bit of artistic license. So I went for that really dark colour and then for a slightly brighter tone. And I think it looked, you know, it had the desired effect in the end. I think it was good enough for what we needed. It was red enough that it made it obvious what it was, because I think if you'd have done it, I don't know, like pink, like proper pink or something that might have gone with what I'm going to do completely, it would have looked not obviously a fire extinguisher. I think you needed it of some sort of reddy tones like that, or something, just a little bit. So just otherwise I think you lose what it is perhaps, and you want that to have the impact, because that's the part that's really what it's all about, that you're putting out those candles because there's so many, and that's kind of the joke of the stamp. And if you lose that, then it kind of defeats the point really. Again, with the little bobble there on the hat, I just did the little dotty thing that I did before, and then I left that because I wasn't quite sure at this point what I wanted to do with the hat itself. So I decided to work on the dress. Now you can see the dress is kind of like a peachy pink, and the paper has a number of different sort of tones, from quite pinky pink to peachy pink, etc., and the goldy colours on it. So I did this colour, I did these two colours that sort of seemed to work with the papers and blended in quite nicely. I felt it looks more harsh actually on here than it did in life at the time, but I sort of was doing it and I was looking at it and I was thinking, yeah, it's okay, I like it, but it was too peach, I felt. So I don't know that I show it on camera, but I do go back later. You see here, I just did the hat in that colour. I decided I didn't like it, so I've gone back with the darker colour. But anyway, you'll see I go back later to the dress. I say you'll see, I'm not sure if I show it, but I go back later with to the dress with like this much more candy pink, here we go, well, you can see it's a very candy pink, and I go over the light area and it lifts some of that peachiness out of the middle, and it went a lot better. Again, it's going to go a lot lighter here. You can see now it's settled. It goes, I mean, the light is quite strong on it, but you can see it's sort of a very nice cross. It's got that peachiness to it, but it's also got a slight undertone of a candy pink, which is really like the papers. And you can see there also that I had the stickles on the glasses. So here I've added the pink pirouette, and here are all my different layers, and I'm just putting on the screen exactly what I've got there, and as we go along putting them together, I will put the dimensions for you. So this lovely card, pattern paper rather, had a version that was with the gold on the hearts, but it also had a version that didn't have the shimmer on it. So I used that part for the inside of the card. Again, as I said, the dimensions are now going to be up on the screen, so you'll see them. Some of them you might have seen already, but you'll see them. The card itself is 6x6, by the way. So this is just a very small little slither down from the 6x6. So it's virtually filling it, but I wanted to have that little tiny bit of white border around it. I just felt that gave it a little bit of a lift. Again, just a bit of dimension. And then I used that gorgeous Stampin' Up pink pirouette. I thought that went perfectly with the card pattern paper. So you can see here the difference, that gold shimmer sort of on those hearts. And I just thought that was perfect paper actually for a birthday card as well, with the hearts. I thought that was really, really nice, and it was perfect for the colours. And well, I could have done any colours, but I just felt it worked really well with the gold and the browns, etc. And just, I felt like, you know, you wanted something ready pink to go for the fire extinguisher, so I just felt it worked really, really well. So I was really pleased to find that. It was only the second pack of paper that I picked up, so I was really lucky, really. So that's that one stuck down, and now we're going to do the candles. So starting with our pink piece to the gold here. So the pink one, the dimensions are on the screen for the pink at the moment. So again, for this, I'm sticking all of these down using my Hunky Dory wet glue, just because it's really strong, but any wet glue will do. I would suggest you use a wet glue because you've got a lot of layering and you want to make sure that it sticks. Also with the mirror card or the mirror board, it is coated, so you do want to be sure that you've got something nice and strong, and I think the tape pens don't always stick enough on there. And now we've got our candles, and you can see how gorgeous they look how shiny they are. I think it really catches it in this light at the moment, and I was really, really pleased with how that turned out. And again, originally I wasn't planning on putting the pink in, and then I was like, I don't know, that would look really nice if I added something, so I went hunting for it. Originally it was just going to be for the inside, but then when I saw it, I was like, oh, that looks so nice. So yeah, I'm really pleased that I added. So it was quite a card that kind of developed quite a lot as it went along, and I wasn't entirely sure, even at this stage, for example, where I wanted to put the sentiment, if at all. I think there was, originally it was going to go on the inside, and in the end I decided to put it on the outside, but it was all very kind of, oh yeah, what about that, or oh, that would work. And I quite like making cards like that. I have this sort of rough idea, and you start developing it as it goes along, and you see something and that bit goes with there, and it all starts coming together. I quite enjoy that sort of way of crafting for me. And then we're putting the actual layer that we made, the big layer with the pattern paper and the gold background, onto the main card itself. And again, I think that looks so nice with the gold of the pattern paper as well, that shimmer with the gold of the mirror board. Now I know a lot of people gut the mirror card in the center to save on card. I don't do that because I think it makes a dip and I don't like it. That's just personal. But you could do it and maybe put another little piece of scrap card in the middle to try and hold it up or something. But I just do it like this. I think you end up with so many little bits and pieces if you're not careful that you just don't end up using. So that fitted then onto the left side, which was my original plan, but it would have been white all the way across, which is where I was slightly hesitating in the first place. So now what I wanted to do was I wanted to make my stamped piece higher. So you can see I've put a lot of blobs of the gel glue. This is rather like silicone glue, but it doesn't stink so bad, and it's very, very strong. And the great thing about it is that you don't need to press very hard. You could just give it a little squidge to make sure it's sort of touching the part you're sticking it onto, but you can then get quite a bit of height without doing a lot to it. Now this is the sentiment. By this time I decided where I was going to put it, so you can see on the main part of the sentiment there's quite a big blob, but on the bit that was dropping down, which is actually the Y of birthday, I put just a flat bit of the glue gel, because that's going to go on to the actual image, and that's already raised up, so we want the happy birthday and the image at the same height. So since that's going to be the case, we don't need to add any extra height to the little Y. And there we go. So you can see there, that's the other beauty of using the glue gel, is that even though, I mean, obviously in this light you can see it really clearly, and I'm trying to catch the light so you can see it clearly, but generally speaking you do not see, like white pads, they would be really obvious to see. Now I went and did these little sort of rivets almost. They're like gems really, but they're like little gold sort of beads. I did them straight away. I didn't wait for the glue to dry or anything. It's probably easier to do it when the glue's dry because you can push it, but because I haven't got the patience, all I did was I just put my tweezers underneath to hold the corner up and then pushed with the other bit. So I just put those on all four corners. I just felt that added, again, just a little extra bit of dimension and a little bit more gold, because obviously it needed more gold at this point. It didn't have enough. So that is the finished card, and I think it's really fun as well. I really like that, and I loved that background. I was thinking, what can I do? I need something that's got candles like a background so that the image looks like that's what you're doing. And I saw that and I was like, that is going to be perfect to have the foiling as well. So that is it. Don't forget to go on across to the blog post if you want to see some photos of the finished card and also links to the products used. I did fairly well in finding the products, including the stamps and stuff, so I think you'll have most of the things you need. Probably not the papers, but otherwise I think I got most things for you linked up. And obviously, as I say, there'll be photos of the finished card, but also the markers that I use, so lots of information there for you. And otherwise, that is it for this year. I will be back on the 3rd of February, so I hope you have a wonderful holidays and a new year, and I will see you back then. In the meantime, don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already, like, and all of that good stuff. Thank you very much for watching all of this year. I appreciate you all. Thank you, and I will see you again soon. Bye for now. Bye.